Joining us now, NBC News White House correspondent Vaughn Hilliard, MSNBC legal analyst and former U.S. Attorney Joyce Vance, and senior writer at The Dispatch, David Drucker. Vaughn, nothing from the White House today. That's interesting.
There's quietness, and our colleagues have written a report in which this White House's tact is one now to not comment on the ongoing Epstein revelations and investigations and efforts to disclose additional files. At the same time, the number two at the Department of Justice, Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's former defense attorney, is actively in Tallahassee, to our understanding, still at this current moment meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell. Of course, this is happening in private confines. This is not happening at the jail. It's happening at the federal courthouse there. And it is not clear whether the Department of Justice will release a transcript of his meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell or what evidence or what testimony they will choose to provide to the American public. And, of course, whether Ghislaine Maxwell is to be trusted in this situation or not, or is she looking for a reduced prison sentence, for instance. The president, for his part, he's been posting on social media about effectively everything but this, which is natural. He is the president of the United States. And yet there are still, we are learning more in real time about the relationship of Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump, and the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was at his wedding in 1993 with Marla Maples. We are learning that in the case of how their relationship ended, there are still serious questions. The White House has insisted that Donald Trump was the one, Katie, that cut off the relationship because he determined that Epstein was a crook. But in a conversation that I had with Mark Epstein, the brother of Jeffrey Epstein, in his tellings, he said that his brother Jeffrey told him that he was the one that cut off the relationship between the two men, the long-standing friendship, because he had determined that Donald Trump was a crook. There are still a lot more questions about that relationship, not necessarily criminal in nature, but one about just how much Donald Trump knew
just
about
one
Jeffrey Epstein.
Clarification, Vaughn. Was it the White House saying that Donald Trump got rid of Jeffrey Epstein because he was a creep or a crook?
A creep. That he got rid of Jeffrey Epstein because he was a creep. And Mark Epstein, the brother, tells me that Jeffrey was the one that ended it because he determined that Donald Trump was a, quote, crook.
All right. Just want to make sure that that's clear. Joyce, the interview right now with Ghislaine Maxwell in the prison, she's got a live appeal going. She wants to get out of prison. She doesn't believe she had a fair trial. How does that, or does that, complicate this interview?
Everything about this interview is complicated, Katie, because the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, the number 2 guy at the Justice Department, doesn't just insert himself in a situation and go interview a potential witness. In fact, if you're going to have anybody do it, that would be the line prosecutor who conducted the case. But they can't do that in this case because they've fired Maureen Comey, who prosecuted this case. There's a step back, more fundamental question, which is why are they talking to her at all? DOJ has already come out with the July 6th memo that says there's no one left to be prosecuted. And so we're left with the real sense that this is the president's former lawyer having a little, tete-a-tete with this woman to see what she might say, what she could say, what she maybe won't say. And it really smacks of politics. This is not how DOJ conducts its business.
Let me play a little bit of the 2010 deposition by federal investigators with Jeffrey Epstein. This is on his relationship with Donald Trump.
Have you ever had a personal relationship with Donald Trump?
What do you mean by personal relationships?
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
David, how is this stuff playing? I can see how it's playing with lawmakers because I can see the moves they're making, the Republican moves. But how is it playing with their constituents?
Well, we don't have any data yet, Katie, to show that it's playing negatively. I think voters, Republican voters in particular, and you can divide them into buckets, right? I mean, you've got the MAGA wing of the Republican Party. They've been concerned with this and other conspiracies, and I think this matters to them to some degree. But they have a habit of absolving Trump of responsibility and then laying the blame at the feet of other Republicans. And I think that's why you've seen House and Senate Republicans, House Republicans in particular, because all of them are up for re-election and have primaries next year, of being more aggressive on this matter than the White House. The president's not up for re-election again, let alone next year. And then I think sort of the broader Republican electorate is more focused on things like, the economy and whether or not the president is handling foreign policy and trade policy and things like that in a manner that they would prefer. I think that the best way to understand this is that voters tend to sort of follow the president's lead when it comes down to it. And so if he tells them there's not much to worry about, then they tend to go in that direction, at least as it concerns him. And so to the extent that this is a problem, it becomes a problem for Republicans in Congress, who always end up with the blame for the troubles that Donald Trump has from their point of view.
I think that's interesting. I do still have the question of, if Donald Trump has that base of support that is unmoving, why is he so defensive about this? Why is he calling the Wall Street Journal to get a story like he sent Jeffrey Epstein a birthday note squashed, according to reporting? Why is he, talking about Obama and...
In a developing story that has gripped the nation's attention, fresh questions have emerged about the historical relationship between former President Donald Trump and the late Jeffrey Epstein, a financier and convicted sex offender. The White House has adopted a stance of silence, declining to comment on ongoing revelations and investigations tied to Epstein, including efforts to disclose additional files. This reticence comes as Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General and Trump's former defense attorney, has been reported meeting privately with Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's former associate, at a federal courthouse in Tallahassee. The meeting, conducted away from the public eye, has raised speculation about its purpose, with no clarity on whether the Department of Justice, DOJ, will release a transcript or details of the discussion. Maxwell, currently incarcerated and appealing her conviction, may be seeking a reduced sentence, casting doubt on the credibility of any testimony she might provide. The Trump-Epstein connection has resurfaced as a point of intrigue, particularly following revelations that Epstein attended Trump's 1993 wedding to Marla Maples. Conflicting narratives surround the end of their long-standing friendship. The White House maintains that Trump severed ties with Epstein upon deeming him a creep, while Mark Epstein, Jeffrey's brother, claims it was Jeffrey who ended the relationship, labeling Trump corrupt. These contradictions have fueled questions about what Trump knew of Epstein's activities, though no evidence suggests criminal involvement on Trump's part. The former president has been notably active on social media, focusing on unrelated topics while avoiding direct engagement with the Epstein matter, a move some interpret as an attempt to deflect scrutiny. Legal experts have expressed concern over the DOJ's handling of the situation. Joyce Vance, a former U.S. attorney, described the involvement of Blanche, the DOJ's second-in-command, in interviewing Maxwell as highly unusual, noting that such tasks typically fall to line prosecutors. The dismissal of Maureen Comey, who prosecuted Maxwell's case, adds further complexity. A July 6 DOJ memo stating that no one remains to be prosecuted in the Epstein case has led to speculation that Blanche's meeting with Maxwell may be politically motivated, undermining the DOJ's standard procedures. Maxwell's ongoing appeal, in which she claims she did not receive a fair trial, further complicates the situation, raising questions about her motives and the potential reliability of any new information she might provide. A 2010 deposition of Epstein, recently highlighted, sheds light on his relationship with Trump. When questioned about socializing with Trump in the presence of females under 18, Epstein invoked his 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, refusing to answer. This has intensified public and political interest in the nature of their association. While the White House remains silent, Republican lawmakers, particularly in the House, have been more vocal, possibly driven by the pressures of upcoming primaries and a desire to address concerns among their base. Among Trump's supporters, reactions vary. The MAGA wing of the Republican Party, known for its steadfast loyalty, tends to absolve Trump of responsibility, often redirecting blame to other political figures. However, newer supporters, including figures like Joe Rogan, who have demanded transparency in the Epstein case, may not share the same unwavering devotion. Trump's defensive posture, evidenced by efforts to suppress stories, such as a reported attempt to quash a Wall Street Journal piece about a birthday note to Epstein, suggests personal sensitivity to these allegations, despite their limited political impact on his core base. Analysts note that Trump's behavior aligns with his historical aversion to perceived slights, often leading him to deflect by invoking familiar distractions, such as references to political opponents. As the Epstein saga continues to unfold, the lack of transparency from both the White House and the DOJ, combined with Trump's evasive tactics, keeps this story at the forefront of public discourse, raising broader questions about accountability and political influence.